What's up everybody? Welcome back to Make It Kustom. I'm Carl Fisher and this is my 1939 Lincoln Zephyr. We've been picking away at it a little bit. We got the doors section. This started as a 4-door. We're converting it into a 3-window coupe. So we've got the back door made into the front door and that's about as far as we've got. You know, we chopped the top a little bit, but just removed metal. What I'm gonna do today is just keep picking away at the side of this car. There's gonna be a ton of kind of little things that need to be hooked up to solidify the door and the jam and all that. So that's what we're gonna get into right now. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like, click subscribe, hit notifications. Let's get into it. Okay, just to give you an update on where we're at and what the plans are, you can see here we've got a piece of jam hanging off the back. This is the C-pillar that used to be, is it gonna stay? Is it gonna fall? I don't know. That is the C-pillar that used to be right there. That was the suicide rear door hinge post. So because we used the rear door and we made it into the front door, you know, I'm thinking, what a beautiful time to choose to suicide door this car. You know, the coupes were not suicide doors. They had hinges up here and I could have left the hinges on, but I decided to cut them off because one way or another, we're gonna have to modify the ends of the doors. So what I'm gonna do is leave these hinges on the back door section of this coupe door now, and I'm gonna use the C-pillar and move it up so that we have factory looking suicide door. What I'm gonna also have to do is continue, you know, sectioning pieces of this hidden running board cover. That's what that is. It's like a little cover that hides the running board. In 38, they actually had a running board that you would step on and the door would open separately from it. But in 39, they called it a hidden running board. I expect, I'm not 100% sure, but my guess is that they did that so that you weren't scuffing up your running board. You would just hide it and the running board would move out with the door. So that's what we're gonna work on right now is I'm gonna use the gauge that we made last time. This is our gauge, profile gauge of the side of the car before we took the doors all apart. And basically, what I would like to do by the end of this video is just get further along with the structure of the jam and the door and figuring all that out. Right now, the door is a bit of a floppy mess. And that's why we need that radius gauge, is because right now, you know, the inner structure is not intact. We can wiggle everything. We'll look over at the other side. You'll see how much movement here, like quite a lot of movement. We'll just barely move these, you know, or the bottom sections of the door where it's not attached. So just having these off a tiny bit can really mess up your alignment and the panel twist that's in there. It's got so much play right now because it's, you know, it's floppy. If I hold the bottom of the door, we can still move it in and out. And when we move it in and out, you can see those pieces move as well. So it's important for us to take our time right now and line up this body line. I want this body line is our main concern. We want to make sure that that's on the right profile. Everything else can come after that. That's my main concern, is to make sure that this door is positioned right with that body line for flow. And then the second thing that we got to line up is that profile gauge across here. You know, obviously the bottom is already kind of lined up because we've got some stock stuff that's here. We've just got to make sure that the profile is right. If you're in, you know, a little bit or out a little bit, that just means so much filler and messing around that now's the time to take our time and make sure that it's right. So I'm gonna gap out the fronts of the doors, maybe tack them on, try and get an idea of what the hinge pillar needs. You know, like I was saying, the C-pillar that's moving forward, that is gonna have to get attached. We'll wanna put our bolts in there, make sure that we have a nice gap here, extend the bottom of the C-pillar because it did come off right here. That's, you know, at some height. We'll have to add material and figure out a way to attach it down there and hold it in place. You know, those are all considerations that we're taking right now. And once the profile is right, the body line is right, we're kind of tacked into place, we can attach the bottom of the C-pillar and continue moving on. And then, you know, once we know that that's exactly where that pillar is going to be, it's going to help us line up the doors and tack the inner structures of the doors, etc. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense, but it'll make more sense the more we get into it. So let's get right into it. Well, okay there. We are getting her done. Got the bottom of this pillar tacked on, and right now we are at the point where I just want to brace that pillar, because even though it's tacked at the bottom, like it's a little bit flimsy, you see here we've got to push this in just a little bit, and then that fits perfect, that profile. The profile gauge is perfect with it just pushed in a little bit. I just gotta hold it right there with a brace. And then I'm gonna do the same thing to the other side, get the bottom of that pillar tacked in there. So I'm gonna probably brace from the top corner here down diagonally to maybe that brace there, and the same thing on this side. And then once both sides are braced like that, I'm also going to brace them to each other so that width-wise, it's constant, super strong. It'll have like a diagonal and the width one, and then it's gonna stay put for us. The reason why I want it to be super strong like that is I'd like to be able to take the door off its hinges and finish the bottom of that pillar. Like, we've got to swing it out of the way to close that pillar in. I'll probably spray a little bit of the copper, you know, weld through up inside there, whatever I can to rust prevent while we're inside, and then we'll close it up, weld the rest, and the bottom of the pillar will be done. That's the goal. And then originally, actually that Zephyr Coupe that I got to see and take the trunk lid template from, I could tell where the braces were. I took pictures of the inside to know where the factory coupe braces are, and they're very different from the four-door. So the pillar brace, there's like a diagonal pillar brace here. I'm not trying to make it totally exact to original. I just want to know where the strength needed to be so that we have the right braces, you know, that's about it. I'm gonna do similar stuff, but I'm not trying to, you know, have an expert look at it and tell that it's not actually a coupe. I don't really care. I just want it to look good and be right. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. Brace these up, get the driver's side up to speed with this one with the bottom pillar piece, and we'll go from there. All right, so where we're at right now, I've got the braces in. Both bottom pillars are tacked. I just wanted to show you kind of why I'm bracing it the way I am. I was talking about doing like a diagonal bar. Instead, I went for a perpendicular, like two perpendicular bars that hold it this way. And that's so that this post is locked in the position where that radius gauge is, you know, perfect on the side of the car. So radius gauge is still on here. I'm sure you saw it, but I just want to explain like how crucial this step is, because this is the alignment of the door, you know, like the door is floppy right now because it's not tagged together. And the reason why we didn't go finishing the door up while it was on the dolly stand is because we don't know its orientation this way, like twist wise. That pillar up there is locked because it's part of the car. But since all this became a variable, we now, you know, had to figure out what orientation this pillar was going to be so that we don't have too much bulge or too much sink in the side of the car, which is why we made the profile gauge before we took apart the doors on this side. If I forgot to do that, this would have been really, really difficult, because we would not have had that piece of information. So yeah, that's where we're at now. I'm really happy with the posts are locked on the bottom. I've only got, you know, just a little 90 in here. But the reason why I wanted to get that locked is so that that becomes solid, not a variable anymore. And then we could line this up and the post would be locked up. So now I'd like to template the bottoms and just start filling in the bottom of the post, that pillar right here. And then once that's nice and strong, we are gonna make a brace that is like a diagonal gusset right here that is similar to what the stock one would have had, as well as little gussets that go into the floor this way. Those are coming up. All right, so got that post in there, both sides. It's still open in the front, but because we've got all the bracing everywhere, we could actually see what it looks like to open the door suicide. Ah, check it out. I mean, the door's a floppy mess because we have not done anything with the structure of the door yet, but since we've got clecos and this is all, you know, in there, there's no harm in opening the door because it'll just go right back to where it was. But actually, that's what's going to be next is, see if I can open these all the way up. That post is looking super strong. So right now, I just wanted to talk about that weld that I did because some of you might be saying, well, you burnt away all your, or you ground away all your weld for that pillar piece, but the reason I like to use a 220 volt welder on sometimes sheet metal stuff is because you have the ability to like crank it up. And if I were to do full welds with it, I would burn through, but I've got it hot enough that my 110 volt MIG welder won't do this. I'm using 16 gauge sheet metal for the pillars, which is thicker than body material because it is a structural piece. And welding that corner and being able to grind it round, I want to burn that weld in quite deep. So I want really good penetration. So I actually like crank the welder right up there and I just zap it and it just melts right in. So you can see on the back side that I've got like lots of penetration. So I was able to grind it round and it's still good. I mean, nobody's ever gonna see it, but I don't know. I like doing stuff like that. So next up for me is going to be make the pieces here that fill and finish the pillar. And then still this isn't enough for strength wise. There's gotta be something else. So there's gonna be a little bit of a gusset at the base right here. I'll make that out of 16 gauge. Just bent tabs and maybe spot welded to the floor and to this. And then I'm also gonna do a triangle gusset, maybe with like a dimple dyed hole in it, gusseting the pillar back. And then I think the pillars will be done and we'll call her a day. All right, well, there it is. Bottoms of the pillars are done. I think they turned out pretty sweet. Pretty basic gusset here, but I think it looks awesome. Just like, you know, in the 30s, everything was pretty basic. There's some holes up here and some sheet metal. I think the original piece, because I did get to take a picture of the one in Alberta, it was much the same shape, just a triangle, but it had a triangle stamped center in it. I kind of like the holes anyway. I'll probably add some holes here and there. Like I said, I'm not trying to do exact perfect to what the stock pieces look like, because that would just be, you know, whatever. But I want to add the same amount of strength to make sure that the body is structurally sound while still kind of looking cool. So this is all 16 gauge, like I said. I did weld on the edge. Just if you're gonna do that, just turn it up, you know, turn your welder up. The other nice thing about having a really hot welder is that when I'm spot welding, the reasons I can sink those spot welds like right in there is because I got my welder cranked. Like I could probably weld 1/4 inch steel with the welder, but if it's 16 gauge, you know, like nice thick metal, you know, and you're just doing a plug weld, you can just hit the center of that and just burn it in for a split second. It fills it up, it gets tons of penetration, and you end up with a really nice shallow spot weld. Like those are not ground. Some of them are even like little dimpled craters, similar to what it would be if it was pinch welded from the factory. So that's what I like to do. I just crank my welder up and let them sink right in. Anytime I'm doing structural steel, I'm always using 16 gauge. That's what the pillars are made of. Outer body metal is usually 19 gauge. Anyway, plug welds and edge welding, corner welding, got the job done, and I think they look pretty sweet. So thanks a lot for watching Make It Kustom, everybody. We're trying to do the Zephyr, you know, once a week or whatever, but we got some more work done on the caddy last night. You guys saw too much. So we'll do something on that next week. Don't forget to like, click subscribe, hit notifications. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks a lot.